And next, I will talk about some signs of MMA usage. Now, bear in mind that these are just some practices that are associated with using MMA monomers in applying acrylic nails, but these can also be signs of other things. For example, lacking skills, lacking in professional training, poor practices, lacking in professionalism, or just negligence. But of course, none of these things are good for you. So just think of this as another checklist. And the more items that you find from this checklist, the more likely it is that the product being used on you contains liquid forms of MMA, specifically their monomer. Okay, so here it is. Here are the things to look for. First of all, in the nail preparation process, look for crazy etching or crazy filing, the crazy thinning down of your nail plate before applying the acrylics. Now, this is to really rough up that surface for proper bonding to take place when using these MMA monomers. And of course, not only does this process thins and weakens your nail plate, allowing more chemicals to be absorbed through that weakened nail plate directly onto your bloodstreams, because as you can see underneath our nails, it's just our blood vessels underneath, and it'll just go right into there. So that's one thing to look for, crazy filing. Second of all is a milky or a cloudy product, especially when they tell you that the polymer that they're using, that's the powder, when it's clear. When I was a teenager, I didn't know any better, and I was actually quite misinformed because I was a big fan of clear nails. The reason being is because my natural nails are quite soft, so I always wanted a protective layer on top, and I thought maybe a coat of clear acrylic would do. So I chose a clear monomer pretty much every time, and they told me that the closest they could ever get to was kind of like a milky whitish color. And it didn't sound right, but of course I didn't know any better then, and that's what they told me, so I just kind of I believed it. But now I know it can be a result of quite a few things. First of all, there's a lot of MMA, or if not, the monomers consisted mainly of MMA. Second of all, it can be the fact that the brushes or the monomer is contaminated. Third, it can be the fact that their product has expired. So these things can contribute to a cloudy or a milky product. Also, the artificial nail surface does not chip or break under extreme pressure. When it breaks, when it cracks, it will just take your natural nail with it. I can't stress that enough. I'll say that again. When it breaks, when it severs, when it cracks, when it flies off your finger, it will take your natural nail with it in extreme cases. And that's not good. I'm not going to show those pictures now because I had dinner and I wanted it to stay in my stomach, so I'm not going to post these pictures, but you will see them on my blog. Okay, and also look for an artificial nail that will turn yellow or brown over time. It may not happen immediately. It'll happen over a course of a few days to a couple of weeks, and this can be a result of a few things as well. First of all, again, MMA in the monomer. Second of all, it's a poor powder to liquid mixture when they're making that ball, that bead of acrylic to apply onto your nails. And again, it can be an expired product, so it can be a combination or one of a few things. And I must say, I have another blog post. It's called Solar Nails. The reason why it's worth mentioning is because I will go in depth talking about this, almost like a new product that they're advertising it as in these nail salons, saying that it's a better form of acrylic, that it doesn't hurt your nail surface as much as the so-called traditional ones. It doesn't yellow, it doesn't turn brown, doesn't discolor. But I know now that with the correct product, when you're using the right product, when you're using the right techniques with the right training, it shouldn't brown or yellow in the first place. Which makes me think, now, what are these solar nail things? Is it a gimmick? Is it a brand? Is it a method? Like, what is it? I'll go into depth and more into depth on that post. So look at that. And also, not only are you looking for overfiling in the preparation process, a good way to look for some of these hints is to look for it in the removal process, because this acrylic, well, this MMA acrylic, that's what I'm going to call it. It can't be easily removed. It can't be soaked off easily, if at all. So these nail technicians, they will file like crazy again in the removal process. And of course, to speed up that removal process, the salon may choose to use an electric file amped up at a very high rev, and you can hear the sound too. The rev is really high, and or they will use like a normal file, but except for it's really rough and coarse to remove that MMA or acrylic. And since it's like mission impossible to see when you're actually filing onto the real nail, it is very likely that they'll file right into your nail if they haven't done that in the preparation process already. There's only so many layers to our natural nails. It's really easy to file through it, especially when they're going at really high speeds or using really rough files. And often this will leave behind a damaged nail plate if you're lucky. If not, it'll just draw blood. And of course, that will lead into other things: fungus, diseases, hepatitis, AIDS. Basically, you're swapping blood and germs with other stuff. And I mentioned last time that a lot of these salons don't sterilize their equipment properly. So that's that. And if that's the case, if you're the unfortunate one who have the MMA or acrylics on your nails, my suggestion to you is that don't do more harm to yourself than you already have. And aside from not going back to that same salon again, not at least not until their situation improves. Just don't file all of it away. Leave a thin layer on top of that natural nail, and just let it grow out. And of course, when you file, do it at a moderate speed. Don't just go crazy on it, because the overfiling and the heat, it will hurt. And removing nails shouldn't hurt, be it the friction, as I said, the heat, or even just going into your natural nails. None of these should happen. If there's pain, there's something going on, and there's no reason for us to experience pain in this process. But of course, they're always amping the electric file up to zzz, so you can hear that sound, and just to overcompensate for the fact that this stuff is so hard to get into. I just can't stress that enough. So that's that. Next, another really good indicator is the low price to full sets and refills. I'm not talking about promotions or sales or coupons. I'm talking about their default price. Now, the reason why I say this, I actually have a good reason, is that the cost of a gallon of MMA liquid monomer ranges anything from like a few dollars to 20-some dollars US. And the cost of EMA liquid monomer, that's the better stuff, it ranges from like $180-some, I remember, to like $200-some per gallon US. And for these discount salons, their cost outweighs everything. And that includes the safety factors or health concern. They don't care. They just want to keep it cheap, so that the customers would keep coming back. Now, while MMA monomers may cost less to buy, the health risks are just crazy, and I said that before already. And in fact, some of these nail technicians don't even know that this is what they're using, and the owner usually pour these MMA monomer into another bottle. They'll pour these monomers into another bottle that's either A, unlabeled, 2, B, insufficiently labeled, or 3, even worse, they might pour it into, for example, this is the cleanse that I use for NSI, and I know that the stuff inside is from NSI because I order directly from them. But for these nasty salon owners, they may take an old one and they'll pour that liquid into here, tricking us to think that this is what we're getting. And it's really hard when they do that, even for inspectors or for their nail salon workers or even for the customers. I know when there's a comparison, you can tell with that smell, but it just makes it that much harder when they pour it into other bottles. So deceiving and nasty. Also, another thing to look for is that the operators, they should be licensed, and the license should be fully visible. If they're licensed, if the salon is legitimate, there's no reason for them to hide their certificates or their licenses, right? And One last thing to look for here is these shops, these bad shops, they'll actually hide the source of the monomers, meaning they'll actually refill it in the back room somewhere, or even like under the table, somewhere dodgy where we can't see them. And again, these bottles don't have labels or even insufficient labeling or even just like the wrong bottles. So it's really, really tricky. But yeah, so just be very observant and just look for these signs.